Imagine your plane vanishing from radar in just 5 minutes. The world declares you dead. Your family mourns you. But you're still alive, trapped on a deserted island, fighting hunger, sharks, storms for 13 years. No help, no signal, no escape. This is not a movie. This actually happened. The date was October 15th, 1995. The king of the skies, the double-decker luxury aircraft Pan Am Flight 6 had taken off from Hawaii to San Francisco with 70 passengers and 7 crew members on board. The passengers were seated comfortably. Some were reading books, some were gazing out the window at the vast blue blanket of the Pacific Ocean, while others were weaving dreams about their future. Suddenly, a scream shattered the calm atmosphere inside the plane. Not one, not two, but 4 masked individuals stood up from their seats. They were armed. The plane had been hijacked. The passengers froze in fear. The cries of children and the panic of adults echoed throughout the cabin. As soon as the air traffic control received the distress signal, chaos erupted on the ground and rescue preparations began. But before anyone could fully understand what was happening, just 5 minutes later, Pan Am Flight 6 disappeared from radar forever. One reason was that the hijackers had shut down the aircraft's location system. But the real danger was something far worse, something beyond human control. The plane had flown straight into the largest and most dangerous typhoon in the Pacific Ocean. Violent winds tossed the aircraft like a toy. The pilot fought with all his strength to keep control, but for the next 2 hours, the plane was completely at the mercy of nature. After 2 hours of this deadly struggle, one engine failed. Shortly after, the second engine failed as well.
The aircraft turned into a ball of fire and began plunging straight toward the ocean. Just moments before impact, some passengers showed extraordinary courage. They overpowered the hijackers and jumped through a broken door into the freezing, unknown ocean. The plane disappeared into the water with a terrifying explosion, but 60 people somehow survived. For miles in every direction, there was nothing but the terrifying waves of the Pacific Ocean. By sheer luck, only 100 meters away from the crash site, a rocky outcrop rose above the sea. Using their last remaining strength, the survivors reached the rock and took shelter. Soaked, shivering, and terrified, 60 people clung to each other on that small rock. They had no phones, no signal, and no hope. The wreckage of the plane had already sunk into the depths. Then one passenger remembered that he had a pair of binoculars in his bag that had somehow survived. With trembling hands, he scanned the horizon, and suddenly he saw a ray of hope. About half a kilometer away, shrouded in mist, was a small island. He shouted, "An island, there's an island over there." Those who knew how to swim wasted no time. They jumped back into the deadly ocean. Below them were dangerous sharks, above them towering waves, but the will to live was stronger than fear. After hours of struggle, only 15 to 20 people managed to reach the sandy shore of the island, exhausted but alive. They didn't rest for a moment. They knew they had to bring the others from the rock to the island, or they would die of hunger, thirst, or the waves. Using dry wood and vines, they somehow built a makeshift raft and returned to the deadly sea. Trip after trip, they rescued every remaining survivor from the rock. When all 60 people finally stood together on the island, reality hit them hard. This was no paradise. It was a desolate, abandoned island. A few coconut trees, some wild bushes, and endless sand. No food, no fresh water. Dark clouds of despair surrounded them. Some collapsed to their knees and cried. Some screamed the names of their families. Others sat silently, holding their heads, unable to believe they were alive, or wondering if this was just a nightmare. In the middle of this hopelessness, a schoolteacher named Mr. David stepped forward. In a firm voice, he said, "Friends, if we panic, we will all die. We must live for each other."
There was a strength in his voice that ignited hope in broken hearts. They organized themselves and began treating the injured. The biggest challenges now were hunger and thirst. A young man named Michael bravely climbed a tall coconut tree and brought back a few coconuts. Those coconuts were nothing for 60 people, but they weren't just food. They were the first taste of hope. They began collecting rainwater in rock crevices and drinking it. Mr. David divided everyone into small teams. Some searched for edible plants, others built shelters. The hardest task was fishing. Some young men sharpened tree branches into spears and stood for hours by the shore, trying again and again. After many failures, they finally caught one small fish.
That day, when the fish was cooked over fire, its smell felt richer than a royal feast. Everyone ate a tiny piece. It wasn't just a piece of fish. It was their first victory. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. They slowly realized that help might never come. They had to survive there. They built huts from leaves, branches, and coconut fibers. The first rain destroyed everything, but they rebuilt stronger shelters. Necessity taught them things they had never imagined. Some learned to smoke and dry fish for preservation. A woman who was a nurse learned to treat injuries and illnesses using wild plants. They planted coconut seeds across the island and wrote a massive "help" on the beach using fallen trees, hoping a plane would see it. One day, a plane did pass overhead. They screamed, lit fires, and created smoke, but it didn't see them. That day, many lost all hope. The first few months were the hardest. Diseases spread due to lack of clean water and food. Loneliness and despair broke many mentally. One by one, 10 people died. Each death was devastating. They buried their companions in the sand with their own hands. Now, 60 had become 50. Meanwhile, in the outside world, after months of searching with no trace of Pan Am Flight 6, the government declared all 77 people dead. Memorial services were held. Newspapers printed their names. For the world, they were a tragic memory lost in the depths of the Pacific Ocean. No one knew that 50 people were still alive, fighting death every day on an unknown island. This was the darkest chapter of their struggle. 2 years passed. Life slowly found a rhythm. Then a miracle happened. A woman gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Her first cry changed everything. Where there had been only death and despair, the music of life now echoed. She wasn't just a child. She was proof that life never gives up, even in the harshest conditions. They celebrated that day like a festival. For the first time in 2 years, life had defeated death. Years passed, 10 years, then 13 years. Children born on the island grew into teenagers. For them, this island was the only world they knew. One morning, they heard a sound they hadn't heard in 13 years, the horn of a large ship. At first, they thought it was an illusion, but when the sound came again, they ran to the shore, screaming, waving, lighting fires with all their strength. And this time, a miracle happened. The ship saw them. It stopped and dropped anchor nearby. The moment was beyond words. 48 people clung to each other, crying, laughing, screaming. 13 years of fear, pain, and waiting had finally ended. When the rescue team reached the island, even their eyes filled with tears. They were looking at people the world had long believed to be dead. When the survivors returned to the city, the world was stunned. Cars, buildings, and lights felt strange to them. No one believed their story until a survivor's diary was revealed. It documented every single day of those 13 years, every struggle, every death, and every birth.
When the diary was made public, the world wept. Later, a book was written about this true story titled The Lost Survivors of Flight 6, 13 Years on the Island. This story teaches us that even the smallest ray of hope can pierce the darkest night, and that the human spirit is stronger than any hardship.